and impact with SCWIST, and working closely with Christine here, who organized this wonderful event. I would like to introduce our speaker of the day, Leah Coss. She is the founder and co-founder of Build a Biz Kids and BBK Network. Leah is utilizing her extensive background in franchising and ongoing research in essential skill development and mindset. She's definitely on a mission to reinvent the education system. Our organization are using new technology designed to draw out each of the child's unique talents and equip them with the ability to share the gifts with the world. Before we start, very important, I would like to acknowledge the land that we are on. We at SCWIST acknowledge that the land that we share our knowledge and build our community is the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh nations. I encourage everyone to type in from where you're joining the event and if you know your unceded territory as well. You can just write them in the chat and we can see it. Now I'll pass it on to Leah, as we're very excited to hear what she has to say. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Awesome to be here. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, truly. This is just fantastic, and I love this organization. And it's always great to connect with Christine. It's been so long. We've been planning on doing something together for so long, and it's finally come together. Like most things, COVID put a wrench in a lot of plans this year. And because of that, it's also changed a lot. Hence, we're talking about screen time today, because if your spring and summer was anything like mine, it was not as I planned it to be. I love my son. I just saw a heck of a lot more of him than I planned on. So before we get going, if you could all do me a favor, I would love to know what ages of kids you have, just so I can gain an understanding. Are we looking at like a lot of kids under the age of 10, under 15? Do we have a lot of grown kids? 7 years old, 9 years old, 9 and 7, 7 and 4. Fantastic. So it looks like we're a lot of middle school, some venturing into high school. Awesome. Okay, cool. Now I know some of you have kids in the room as well, so they can participate in this. How many devices would you say that your child has access to? So I'm going to assume TV, maybe. We've got iPads, phones, laptops that the child gets to use, video game consoles. That's 5 right there. I'm sure I'm missing some things. Kids know way more about technology than I do, I feel like. 2, 3, awesome. Yeah, I mean, kids have access to a lot of technology right now, hence why we're on here. And what's so interesting is when you reflect on when we were younger, we really only had TV and video games. And what's interesting about the TV is kids shows were only on, or at least the shows that we wanted to watch, were only on at like 1 point or 2 points in the day. And then once our show was over, if we weren't interested in watching Jeopardy or the news, we had to move on to something else. So obviously things have changed a lot. There was also another dynamic that we weren't contending with when we were younger. And that was the idea that TV and video games back then were only one-way communication. We didn't have strangers who were online with profiles and pictures that may or may not be of them. We didn't have people emailing us about how a sultan really wants to give us $1 million, but first we need to send them a certain amount of money first. Or someone that's saying, hey, click here, there's an issue with your account, and then all of a sudden we have a virus. No, we didn't have those things. We also, we had really sophisticated marketing companies. You look at Coca-Cola or Mr. Christie's or all that. They spend a lot of money on how to market to kids. But these days we have companies like YouTube and Facebook, and they spend millions of dollars on learning how to create addictive behavior online. They want us to stay on there longer. They want us to interact more. So I just wanted to start by saying that, because screen time means something different in a lot of households, but I know that a lot of it stems from just the anxiety of what is too much screen time. What is good screen time? I have fears around screen time when my child is on there unsupervised. So you're not alone in this struggle. I struggle with that myself. So full disclosure, this is not a I'm perfect, let me share with you my ways. This is a ongoing adapting situation that we need to keep evolving with, right? So what I hope to share with you today is basically a new approach for managing your child's screen time, but more so a new way of looking at your child's screen time. I really want to help change the dialogue that's happening in your household between you and your kids, and kind of help to alleviate some of that headache conversation that seems like it's on repeat. Get off the screen, that's too much screen time, you know, and it's becoming this point of contention in the household. And I am going to give you that 3-step formula. But before we can change the conversation and lead into those 3 steps, we need to change the way that we treat the screen time. Because if COVID has taught us anything, it's not going anywhere. Now, my household might be a little bit different than yours. My son, actually, because of COVID, is doing distance learning for the first time this year. It's basically homeschooling, but he does have a teacher that he connects with. Every couple of weeks, she gives him the assignments. She handles all of that. We're just there for support and guidance in the household. And all of his assignments are available online. His assignments are to be done on time or online. So as you can imagine, he is on the screen a lot because then he still loves to watch YouTube and play video games and all those other things. When I walk past him on his laptop, it's funny because I catch myself looking for cues, going, does he have his hand on the mouse? Is he watching a video because he's smiling and giggling? Nobody smiles and giggles at their math work. So like, is he doing good screen time, or is he doing like goofing off kind of screen time? And so it's really something that needs to be a work in progress. And if you have a child who's either working from home, doing school from home, or maybe they're doing a hybrid, or even their homework at this point, especially with the ages that I saw in there, a lot of the homework is all done on the computer these days. So you might be able to relate with that. But just know before we get started, you're not alone. This is a struggle, and we're going to have this conversation today, but we're going to need to keep having the conversation and just support each other in how we treat screen time in the home. Now, before I dive into the 3-step formula that I promised you, I want you to either close your eyes or blur out what's in front of you, although if you have a child with you, you do have to keep one eye on them. But I want you to imagine the world 20 years ago. You are back living in the year 2000. What were you doing? What did the world look like? For me, I graduated in 99. I was 1 year out of high school. That year was the first year that I sent an email. It was to my communications professor, and I didn't know how to make an attachment, and he had to guide me through it. So that was 20 years ago. Social media was nowhere to be found. We were still using torrents and LimeWire to download things. Websites were really, really ugly, and everyone was using Hotmail or Yahoo. Google was nobody, never heard of it. And flip phones and texting, those were the thing. But texting is quite comical now. If you can relate, it's like you want to type a 3-word thing, but it takes like 6 or 8 button clicks in order to type out the alphabet. Way different. But that was just 20 years ago. It wasn't that long ago, or at least I'm telling myself it wasn't that long ago. 20 years ago. Now come back to today and think about all those different things I just listed. What does your email look like? What do websites look like? Social media. What can you do online? I mean, you can watch your favorite TV shows on demand now. You can miss the 6:30 time slot and still be able to watch that episode. You can listen to your music. You can find your local sushi restaurant. You can literally do so much stuff online. But what I want you to really visualize right now is, what do you think 20 years into their future looks like? What does 20 years look like? How do we travel? How do we talk to one another? Is there a version of technology that we think hasn't even been invented yet that they're going to be utilizing on an everyday basis, the way that we utilize Facebook on an everyday basis? Our phones as calculators and maps and all those things. If we want our kids to have a fighting chance against working to get jobs and careers with AI being involved in robotics and technology, they need to have technology literacy. It's a thing now. There's reading literacy, but then there's technology literacy. And they need to know how to use it more than ever because of the power that's behind it. But they're still going to be individuals. They're still going to be using their creativity and their imagination, but they're going to have these massive tools at their fingertips. So hold that 20-year vision in your mind of what their world will look like. And then let's jump into these 3 steps. All right, so the first thing is really a paradigm shift. It's changing the conversation and and really the energy that we hold as the parent in the household around screen time. Because based on what we just went through with the 20-year into the future, or even today's reality, the first thing to remember is that the screen is not the enemy. Life was changing very rapidly before COVID, but now that we've experienced what life is like to work, play, educate, socialize, even exercise, which was funny, and do it all through a computer screen, it's changed our world forever, and that also includes our kids. It's also really shown a lot of ways that things can be way more efficient. I can't believe how much time I used to spend driving downtown. I live in Port Moody, so driving downtown about at 45 minutes, an hour of traffic, just for a 1-hour meeting. And then I would hop back in my car and I'd drive all the way back. And the only thing that I miss about that is I used to listen to way more books and podcasts. But other than that, I get like 3 times as much work done. It's so much more efficient. So if we can create efficiencies, we definitely don't want to create it as an enemy. But before you get that kind of feeling in your stomach where you're like, I'm resisting what she's saying because I don't want life to be like that. I get it. I can't wait for my first in-person event again, because there's so much value in that as well. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I mean, something like this, half of the value. I'm half the value, I'll say. And then the other half is where you would actually be bumping into every other single person in this room and being like, hi, like I've never met you before. And you get to know somebody. You can't do that online. As much as we're trying, where, you know, hey, let's do breakout rooms and let's get to know each other. It's not the same. You can't feel the energy. You can't feel the synergy. You don't have the funny remarks about the bartender or the, you know, the hors d'oeuvres to make small talk over. You just don't. And so we still need that. But you will not avoid the fact that machines and robots and technology and so on, it's going to be a huge part of their lives. So they have to be fluent in this technology literacy. The other thing is if we villainize the screen, it's going to create anxiety for the child as well. And it's really not the enemy. It's really the most powerful tool that they will ever have in the world. If you can imagine doing a research paper when we were young, so go back 30 years ago, back to their age, at least for me, I don't know how old all of you are, but if I wanted to do a research paper, I had to go to the library, shuffle through card boxes, find a book that was probably written 5, 10, or 20 years ago, so it's clearly out of date, and then do a research paper on it and pretend that I'm smart. These days, kids can have everything at their fingertips. They don't have to go through all of that. They can learn exponentially faster than us, and my goal for my child is that he becomes way smarter than I am. And the only way to do that is to utilize technology. It really is like having a magic genie in a bottle, granting you anything that you want in way of learning. So we need to treat the screen with that kind of power. So that leads into number 2. Because technology is going to be one of the most important tools of their lives, not the most important thing in their lives, but the most important tool in their lives. It's going to run their kitchens, their laundry, their transportation, their massive aspects of their career. Their schedule will be managed by technology, their communication, and often making connections with others. While I don't believe it's going to be 100% of their lives, it is going to be a huge part of their careers. But just like Superman or Spider-Man, that much kind of power in the wrong hands, without training, without guidance, without understanding, and so on, we've got a big problem on our hands. So because there's kids in the room, they'll appreciate this reference. Superman had his dad to be his compass of how to use his powers, and Spider-Man had Uncle Pete. You know, every superhero has that person that guides them on how to utilize something that's that powerful, like their superpowers. The internet, Google, computers, they are magical. They are superpowers. So what I want to ask all of you, and you don't have to answer this out loud, but how many of you have had conversations with your kids about not talking to strangers? It was important, right? You didn't want them to get hurt. If you have older kids, maybe you're starting to have conversations about, and sorry if you're going to have to explain this to your kids, but the birds and the bees, you know, you want them to stay safe. You want them to respect that topic and their partners. Maybe conversations around bullying, or the importance around health and exercise, the importance of if we get a dog, you are going to have to take it outside. You have those conversations with them because they're very important. Deliberate conversations need to be had about the internet and about technology and the power that it has and the respect that is needed in order to use it for good and not evil. We can't expect kids to be born knowing intuitively what a dangerous email looks like, what someone who's trying to start up a conversation online could be on the other end of that webcam. We can't expect them to know those things. What we also can't do is pretend that they don't exist and that we'll deal with it when they're 19. We need to have those deliberate conversations today. We need to help them understand the difference between things that could be dangerous, and when in doubt, always ask, and why. We need to be honest about the why, because that's going to make them go, oh yeah, I don't want that to happen. And then they will be honest with you. They will tell you when there's something happening that shouldn't be happening or could be a bad thing. We need to teach them what good, healthy screen time is versus too much screen time is. What are those bodily things? You know, if our kids go out running and they're like, I have a headache, and it's a sunny day, we educate them, oh, you probably need some water. Let's fix that headache. That headache means that you're dehydrated. The same thing with this. If you get a headache, and you've been in front of your computer, or you get fuzzy eyes, you've had too much screen time. That's a good indication. You know what, you worked hard for the day, good job, let's take a break. In fact, get them some glasses. That's what we have for my son. And that helps to reduce on the blue light that comes through. And it makes such a big difference. It also gives them a lot more positive energy throughout the day as well, so that they're not feeling so lethargic and just wanting to sit in front of the computer. So there's good and there's bad. There's a lot of money going into addictive behaviors for them as well. Knowledge is power. You know, if you tell them, hey, you see that ad? We actually have a marketing class, and kids really like it because we'll show them ads and we'll say, what do you think that advertiser's trying to get you to believe? That this is a healthy cereal. Yeah, now let's talk about this. What's in that cereal? Is it healthy? Do you think it's healthy? And once they feel like they understand the world around them, they get pretty excited about it. They get really excited about it. Share with them how your next video starts in 5 seconds, what that addictive behavior is actually trying to do, and don't give in to them. Don't you let them win. They feel empowered with that information. And you end up having really great conversations with your kids. So that's number 2, is that we can't avoid or deny technology. And especially right now, schools have had a very big scare with COVID. They're doing everything they can to get things back to how they were, but we know that it doesn't take much, and then all of a sudden, poof, kids are back home again full time, and it's all online. And in fact, once you hit like kind of that middle school, high school, you have large portions of this online. And even with video games now, they're not like our video games back in the day with my old original Nintendo and Duck Hunt gun. It's a lot different. It's all hooked up to the internet. People can reach out to me when I don't want them to reach out to me. And so that's just education that we need to have very deliberately with kids. All right, number 3. We need to trust our kids. We need to trust them that when we educate them and we have ongoing education, that we trust them to use this power for good. The same way when your child gets to the age where you have talked to them about crossing the street, you've talked to them about the safety of strangers and not going up to stray dogs and petting them without, you know, judging the situation. And then finally they hit 12, 13, 14, whatever the age is that you're letting them go to the corner store by themselves or walk to school. You trust them. You don't follow behind them, I hope, follow behind them in your car secretly while they're walking to school every day, right? It defeats the purpose. You give them that power, that education, that knowledge, and then you let them go and you let them fail. You have to let them fail. You have to let them make mistakes, because I make mistakes on the daily. If I hold my child to a different standard, that's way too much pressure. That's more pressure than we should ever put on someone else to be perfect, especially the first time around. So trust needs to be built. If you're hovering over them every time they're on the screen and you're assuming that they're watching, you know, my son loves Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's learned way too much vocabulary and things about the world that we didn't anticipate him learning from that show, but he loves that show. But you know what, a lot of other times I have presumed he's watching that, but instead he's actually watching a YouTube video on World War II. It's his latest fascination. He's also watched videos on, for whatever reason, he decided, I want to learn Mandarin. So he started watching those online. I mean, that's the power of this. We couldn't do that when we were young. If we were like, I want to learn something, like, okay, well, I got to drive you to the library, or I got to take you to a class. I mean, kids can literally learn anything online. And it's great because it doesn't cost you anything. It's not like back in the day when you're like, oh, this is going to cost me, and we're putting you in for the full semester or the full year. We don't have that anymore. Watch 3 videos. If you're not interested in it, cool. We won't do that then. We'll have you take something else. So you have to trust them, give them the power, and give them the ability to navigate letting their creativity lead them from video to video, website to website. Recognizing that when they type in literally any word in the world, something unsavory could pop up that they weren't anticipating. Let them know about that. Don't have them feel this guilt around it. That's going to make them want to hide the things that they find online. So those are your 3 steps. And before I wrap up, I just wanted to have one other note, parent to parent. Technology has a lot of awesome stuff that I've reviewed. But technology can also be an incredible way to have a lot of fun, to have a lot of family time and bonding time. I mean, we do escape rooms, we do VR, where we shoot zombies, we have family time. You know, during dinner, you may or may not agree with this, we watch a TV show together as a family when we eat dinner. And that's our time where we all know that we can put our laptops away. And yes, we're going on to a new screen, but it's a great place for the family to get together and take an interest in something together. There's also times where, frankly, I am tired and I just want him to be on his screen. And that's okay too. As parents, we deserve a break. As parents, we're allowed to take a breath. And our parents threw us in front of the TV every Saturday morning as our babysitter. You're allowed to do that as well. But when you have the communication and the 2-way communication and agreement with your kids about what this is this is a permission time. Let your creativity fly, watch what you want. Here's a block of time that we're both going to do the things that are going to fuel us so that we can move on to the next thing that is more productive, whether that's online or offline. So that's what I have for you today. Happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Leah. This was great. Yes, the floor is open for question, and you could either type them in the chat, or actually, if you don't mind, I encourage you to go off mute and ask the question directly. And while everybody thinks of a question, actually, I'll start. I was wondering, because that's one thing, of course, my children are a bit older, they're 14 and 16. So we had a discussion about what they thought was a reasonable amount of time to be on a screen. And I was wondering what you thought about this, and maybe for younger age, is that appropriate? Or I just wanted you to comment on that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, not clear? Yeah. No. Here you go. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, I can hear you. Yeah, sorry. I just want to make sure that I frame the question correctly.
Sure. I was wondering, because my kids are a bit older, and recently we had a discussion, and I asked them what they thought was a reasonable amount of time to be on the screen per day, so that they could, as opposed to me imposing some limits, let them come in, and then we had a discussion. And I was just wondering if you thought, my kids are older, 14 and 16, but if they were younger, do you encourage to ask them, or do you think that imposing would be a bit better if they're younger?
I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't sure if you were asking, is there a right time? Is there a good time? Or asking, I mean, to me, anytime with literally any topic, 2-way engagement is always better, because even if you have an idea of going, well, I'm not letting them go over this number, right? And the kid says, they could say 5 or 25, and you'd be like, no, let's lead you here. Either way, you're only going to get buy-in from your child. They feel a part of the process, and you're only going to get understanding about why you're even having this discussion if they're a part of it. I mean, the thing with kids is, I know we're parents and there's certain decisions we do need to make on their behalf, but I do still feel that we need to treat them the same way that we would want to be treated, and nobody likes to be told what to do and imposed on without rhyme or reason. Right? Or someone else's imposed rhyme or reason. So you may think that you can only justify 5 hours a day of good and bad screen time, but they're going, but you haven't heard that it actually takes me about 3 of those hours just to do my homework. And then I like to have a half an hour before school, and they'll want to be able to justify or have that dialogue. So 100% asking them what is good or bad screen time. And then also reflect honestly with yourself that as much as it'll be annoying, and I know all of us have different careers in here, that for me to tell my child a limit that is like half of the time that I'm on a computer on a day-to-day basis is, again, enforcing something on them that is not going to compute or register. It's going to break trust with them because it's going to look hypocritical. And you're also, again, trying to avoid the realities of the world they're growing up into. And especially depending on where you are and the COVID isolation restrictions, a lot of people still aren't going out of the house and letting their kids go to their friends' houses. That has a whole other emotional implication than if you let your child go on Zoom so they could at least talk to their friends or play Fortnite while talking to their friends together, right? There has to be that realization that you are still demonstrating behaviors. You need to involve them in the conversation, and don't try to limit based on your fears, solely based on your fears. You need to do it based on what training do they need in order to utilize this tool. I don't know about you, but if it's a difference of my child just, I don't know, bobbing back and forth or getting into chaos in my house, I'd rather him be watching a YouTube video on learning a new skill. That's a good trade to me, right? And yes, we want our kids to go outside, but that's not always a possibility depending on their age.
True. All right, there's a couple of questions in the chat. Mary is asking, she would like some more information about screen addiction. I don't know if you could comment on that.
You know, the screen addiction is like this new thing, right? Now, there are a lot of resources, and that's using the magical power of technology and Googling, you know, online addiction for kids. There's a lot of the different health authorities that have resources on there. The implications of screen addiction, I'm going to say that no one is able to actually say what those are. But like with any addiction, it's an addiction once, you know, I'd rather play video games than go to work. Well, you may as well be a gambler, right? You're now affecting your ability to make money, and you're affecting your ability to, you know, pay your mortgage and those kinds of things. But it's kind of like having food as an addiction. It's difficult because you can't just say, well, then I'll cut food out of my life. It's not cigarettes. You can't say, I'm just going to get rid of cigarettes. Or you can't say that with cigarettes. You can't say that with food. And you can't really say that with technology either. You have to educate the person around food and the good food and what your body needs around food in order to be able to educate that. And I don't want to in any way say that I know anything about eating disorders, but it's something that can be carried over to technology, where you can't just say no technology, you're addicted. It needs to be an education process. It needs to be something where, to be honest, short of, I would imagine even the garbage man uses technology, you know, police officers use technology. There's not many jobs out there that don't use technology. So you can't just say no technology for you. It has to be about the education, the informing, the good, the bad, the scary, the signs in your body when you've had too much. So that's what I would start with. But there's certainly different support groups out there. There's also resource materials for parents, because the reason all of you are on here is because this is a really big topic. It's a really big concern for parents. And the scary part about it is we don't actually know what the 20-year repercussions are of too much screen time, because we haven't had social media for 20 years. We haven't had YouTube for 20 years. We haven't had Zoom. We haven't had Zoom for 20 years. Can you imagine? So we don't know what those long-term repercussions are. So it's kind of a not real answer for you, but I don't know if that was the context in which the question was asked.
And then there's Abe. Abe's asking about how to take a 10-year-old out of a single thing only and have them interested in other things. And I guess it's linked to the fact that you talked about good screen time and bad screen time. So how do you remove, the moving them from bad screen time and pushing them towards the good one, which is the educational part, maybe?
For sure. I think like a lot of things is having that dialogue and asking the why. Why is video games the only thing that you want? I actually know I've come across so many more parents than I thought I ever would in a lifetime already who have said, my child, I talked to one just the other day, my child is top 10 in Madden football, I believe it is. But like he's top 10 in the world and he's 11. So try and convince that kid that this is not a career path for him. He's starting his own career or his own YouTube channel. He's, and so some of them really believe that this is the path they want to go to. And if a parent is still feeling like video games is not a career path, EA Sports, Disney, Netflix, they're all going to massively disagree with you about games and entertainment not being a career path. So it really could be. And if that's where they're coming from, okay. But there could be a lot of actual emotional reasons that they're doing that. Are they dealing with bullying, low self-esteem? Are they in bad health that's coming through as being lethargic and tired and restless? Are we looking at some sort of mental health thing, a biological thing? They're not getting the right nutrition. Is the screen actually just doubling down? As I mentioned about the glasses, if I don't wear these all the time, I'm KO'd midday, because I'm tired. My brain is exhausted. And so the first step I would say with anything, whether it's video games or YouTube or whatever the addiction is that's online, iPad games, is why? Why are you feeling this is the only thing that's feeling of value to you, that has purpose to you? And open up that dialogue. And a great exercise in general, even outside of this conversation, is if you're a person who likes to put together dream boards and stuff like that, have your kids sit down and get them dreaming about, my son has so many things he wants to do because he sees other people do it on YouTube. So he wanted to learn how to do a backflip, learn how to do parkour, and do a handstand. And I was like, awesome. You can't do that online though. So you're getting all hyped up about, wow, the world is this and the world is that. Look I can see it all, on my screen here. Well, then say, awesome, let's put a plan together. Every day I'm going to go out with you and let's go to the parkour. We've got one here in Port Moody, so he's able to go to the parkour park and practice that kind of stuff. So get them asking, what is it about this that you love so much? And try and understand where they're coming from. Because like anything, if I really love something and you tell me I can't have it, I want it even more. So you need to have a dialogue. You need to talk to them about what is it about this that draws you to it.
Libby also made a good comment that parents need to emulate, I guess, the behavior that we're looking. We need to set an example and manage screen time for themselves, which is very true. Because now that when we ask our kids to put some rules, now they call on us. If like, well, you're not supposed to be looking at your phone now. So that was good. Actually, I would be curious, and if people want to answer maybe in the chat, because we as parents do not bring our phone in the bedroom, and that we have made that a rule. So the kids emulate the same thing as well. And I was just wondering if people were willing to share if they are agreeable with phone in the bedroom or not. No. And I can see Marie came online. Marie, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Yes, definitely. It's related to my previous questions. So just to tell you, so I have my 13-year-old is very involved in screen, and we've done pretty much, my background is in IT, so I've been working on computers, and I know how a career in IT or in programming is important and to have the skills. And so we've had the discussions, and when we discuss things about the time for this, the screen time that could be, the regular one, they say, yeah, but then they can't, he can't stop, so and we're very concerned because obviously the more we prevent doing screen time, the more he wants to do it, right? Mm-hmm. And also, so we are in the situation right now where we've set up a Microsoft family. And so after 1 hour, it just stops So he can be in the middle of a game or in the middle of a video and he's pissed off. But this is because he's had all those warnings before, like, this is the screen time rollout, so now it's over, so you should stop. And if we do that, he's going to do, like, instead of 1 hour, it's going to do 1.5.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is, yeah. I don't know, maybe we didn't have the right discussion. I don't know. I'm sorry, my voice is going away.
Yeah, there's two things I'll say to that. And I think a lot of us can relate to the first one, is parents, or rather kids, become parent deaf. Have you ever had the experience where your kid comes home and goes, Mom, Dad, guess what my coach just told me? And you're like, I've been saying that to you for years. Like, and it's, or my teacher just told me this. I'm like, yeah, like, I literally tell you every morning when you wake up, like, do this, right? So they get parent deaf is what we call it. And with the BBK Network and Build a Biz Kids, one of the things that we tell parents is we're that other voice for you. The things you've been telling your child to do forever, they might hear it from us. It might come in a different way. So that's one approach, is just going, maybe I'm not the right person to actually tell them this. It's really hard as a parent to be the safe place, the disciplinarian, to be the educator, to be the friend when they need it, but also the mother or the father. It can be difficult to be all those things and for them to see you in all those lights, right? So being aware of whatever the tone was, whatever the role, what the hat was you had with them that day before you bring up the conversation can help them to hear you a little bit differently. The other thing is a different situation, but a same issue is my son. It is taking him way longer to do his distance learning. And it's because, not that he doesn't know how to do it, but he gets distracted by anything. Like literally, he just starts zoning out and he's staring out the window. I'm like, hey, psst, like you literally did one aspect of your multiplication or whatever, like back at it, right? The thing is because we've had the conversation about what we're agreeing to with distance learning, the responsibility that comes with that, the exciting opportunity of being self-directed and finish your work by 11 if you want. Perfect. The rest of the day is yours. Or you can take all day and be working on it until 9 p.m. But we've had that conversation. And the thing is, though, much like for all of us, we say we're going to go to the gym, but then we don't. And then the next day we say we're going to. Wouldn't it be nice if we had a trainer that every morning just went, hey, psst, psst, get out of bed, right? We'd be like, yeah, I made the agreement. Okay, and we get out of bed and we go, right? We need to be that person for them. But that's not a disciplinarian role. That's we've had an agreement. And just today, he was sitting down and he was writing. And I said, okay, you're going to do 3 questions in the next half an hour because then he had his call with his teacher. So I said, 3 questions. Well, he started doing the first one. And then he was, and I went, hey, psst, psst. He went, yeah. And then he went back at it. And I had to do that a couple of times because it takes a little bit to remind them. But the key to that is you can't just start doing that because now you're making them feel, oh man, I get scolded like every 5 seconds. You have to have had that agreement and reestablish that agreement. And if you need to, we've even done contracts. He loves contracts. They feel very grown up. He signs his contract. I will do this. We did that for chores when we did that the first time around. Unfortunately, I lost it at September because that's when the contract ended. So I have to negotiate a renewal. But, having that agreement allows you the permission, especially if you ask for it, to have the permission to just kind of remind you and get you back on track because you said you wanted to learn parkour. So that means you don't want to be on video games all day long. Like, let's get you focusing on what that other stuff is. And that's also a key that I'll just reiterate, which is he's on video games so much, but why? Is it truly an addiction where his brain is on a loop, or is there something he's avoiding? Is there something that he feels like, well, I'd love to learn how to play guitar, but I don't know where to start. And so I'm just going to do this because it's easier. We all do things because it feels easier to just do that. And kids are no different. We can't hold them to a higher standard than ourselves. We have to coach them and guide them. And it all starts with having that conversation and getting that agreement on what are your goals? What are your goals? Let me help you. Let me be that trainer in the morning that goes, psst, psst, out of bed, put your runners on, get the heck out of the house.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That helps a lot. And I completely relate to they need to hear it from someone else than us, because this is what happened. We watched The Social Dilemma as well with him, and we were like, hey, man, this is what we've been telling you, right? Yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Abe was asking if you had any comments on those parental control tools that are available on the various platforms.
Yeah, so they're a tool, right? They're a tool, just like, gosh, thinking of everything that's literally around us is a tool. But the moment that you're not able to execute that, and you take the training wheels off, are they just going to fall over because they never actually learned how to ride the bike? They just learned how to sit on a bike and pedal, but they had the training wheels on the whole time. So I'd say it's a great tool, but you need to treat it with respect as just a tool of going, we're just going to use this as an aspect of measurement, you know? Like, look at, Mommy's got this where every week it tells me how much screen time I had and if I'm up or down. I had no idea. Isn't that awesome that I can learn that kind of stuff about my behavior, and now I have the power to change it if I think it needs changing. But there's going to be that day where, I don't know about you, but my parents, my mom specifically, mom issues, not dad issues, mom issues over here, who told me I couldn't do a lot of stuff. And the moment I was able to do it because I didn't live under her roof anymore, I did them all. I did them all so much, and it didn't do me any good, but I did it because it was me going, I'm taking control back of my life. And we don't want our kids to do that. We want our kids to learn about how to manage themselves. That's like doing portion control on a child's diet without telling them why you're doing it or what the nutrition is that you're putting in their body or why they need to eat their broccoli. You have to inform them. Otherwise, the moment they don't have to eat that broccoli anymore, they're not gonna. They're gonna go to McDonald's every day because it tastes good. You didn't provide them with the education behind it and then the accountability to continue upholding it. And as Libby mentioned, demonstrating the behavior as well. Eat your own broccoli, right?
I totally agree. As any good mom, I taught the kids to eat well. Of course, as they get teenager and they get their own money from reffing, they do go. And now recently, my 15-year-old, 16-year-old is like, Mom, where are the vegetables? I need some vegetables. Which I'm like, okay, it's sank in. Like, so you can see, you're right, they own themselves, and then somehow my message sank in, so they're asking for vegetables.
Well, what's so great is, you know what, they're gonna eat McDonald's at lunch because their friends are. It makes them feel like they fit in. It tastes good. But when they get a stomach ache, a headache, when they start to have changes in their body or in their skin or their hair, they're going to go, well, why? Oh, I'm already equipped with this knowledge. I can make a different decision because they've been informed, right? Yeah, knowledge is really power.
Great. Right, anybody else with a question that would like to wrap it up? Any last piece of advice? I mean, you could also do a session for good or bad screen for adults. I'm sorry to say that we could also use some training, right? And maybe if the knowledge is in us.
I'll take that seminar. Yeah.
Okay. Who's going to teach us?
I'll be a guest, right? Yeah. No, yes. We all have, and that's the thing, right? And this again carries over into not just screen time. Be honest with your kids about your struggles. If they feel like they have to meet this expectation of perfection and that they're gonna disappoint you every time they slip up, oh, I clicked on that clickbait. Oh, I started watching like 20 minutes of videos and Mom's gonna be so upset. That's a lot of weight, right? But if you can let them know, like, man, my phone told me that I had 6 hours a day of phone time. Like, whoa, that's like incredibly terrible. Oh, Mom slipped up. All right, what do you think I should do to make this better? Let them be a part of your learning process. You know, they say that you learn twice as fast when you teach others, right? So teach them and let them teach you. Let them demonstrate their knowledge and suggestions. Let them feel empowered that, yeah, you got this and it's okay to make mistakes. It's also going to take a lot of pressure off of you. You know, a lot of pressure off of you when you know that you can be on your computer and be honest with them and say, you know what, I'm really sorry, but Mommy's got this big project due. I can't watch our family time TV show that we are going to do this night. And I just want you to know that I'm making this as a conscious decision. not as because I don't care about family time, or because I'm all of a sudden changing my perspective on what good and bad screen time is. There's a reason behind what I'm doing, and open them up into your world and your life, your conversation.
Excellent. Thank you, Leah. On those last words of wisdom, I'm going to bring this to a wrap. We have gained 10 minutes, and I challenge everybody to go out for a walk if it's sunny where you are, so that we are going to switch our screen time to some outside time. Thank you so much, Leah. Hopefully I'll run into you again. Thank you for everyone that came. It was very useful.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye-bye.